Hi everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Home of Houseplants, the podcast. And today we're going in a new direction by interviewing David Brown, who is the owner and operator of BB Architects, a stunningly beautiful architectural studio in the streets of Adelaide CBD in a quiet corner of the city, which is a stunning space where he works by day in a workshop that is dripping with indoor plants and is a magnificent sight to be seen. And I won't continue talking anymore without introducing David Brown. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
David, can you paint, like I ask most guests to do this, could you please paint a word picture of the studio that we're seated in at the moment?
Sure. So we've got 100 square metres of floor space, which is broken up into 50 square metres at the front part of the office, which has got a 3-metre ceiling and a typical shop front window. At the back half, it jumps up to 6 metres clear space with both north and south lights. So it is a veritable greenhouse back there. Gets filtered sun through the frosted glass windows and is warm and toasty once you get above the 3-metre level. So things love to grow up there.
David, how many plants are we looking at roughly?
Plus 500. It depends whether you count. I've always had this thought in my mind. When you say how many plants do you have, like, you know, there's a pot of Camudora Metallica palms just on the boardroom table where we're sitting, and there are 10 plants in each pot. So does that count as 2 plants or 20 plants? If we're going to go that far, then we're probably pushing near the 800-900, but I'm just going to generally call it 500 plus because I can't count that far anymore.
David, the walls are predominantly exposed brick.
Yeah, it's concrete block. It's an old warehouse from the 60s that got chopped up. Polished
concrete floor.
Which is just perfect because I make a mess when I water.
And the sort of walls are lined with sort of PCs where your staff work.
Yeah, that's right. There's 4 people work in the office here. There was 5 workspaces, but one of the workspaces got sacrificed to plants.
David, it's... from the outset, if people want a visual as to what this looks like, your Instagram handle...
Yes, the Planted Studio.
Where you can get some insights. It's quite spectacular.
It's quite difficult to photograph, though, because it is so full of plants that you don't actually get the depth perception. But there's quite a few videos on my Instagram of me watering plants, standing on top of ladders, panning around. Gives you a better idea of what's going on.
You sort of, would I say at the 3-metre mark, you've installed some cabling?
Yeah, I ran out of plant space and spent a few months working out how to get more plants in the office. And initially I was going to get the girder trusses that they use in sound stages and things like that, these kind of open web trusses, and hang a row of plants on them. I thought that was a bit limiting because that would only get me about 20 plants. So I got one of my builder mates in and he screwed me some saddle brackets to the walls, and we've got this random zigzagging stainless steel cable system, probably with, 50 or 60 plants randomly hanging from it.
It's quite stunning. There are some supersized plants that are sort of metres away from me, in particular Carry Pine.
Yes, the Carry Pine, that was a bit of a find. I did have 4-metre high Kentia palms in here when we first moved in, but they were taken from a client's front garden that they didn't want the palm anymore, and it was because it was grown in full sun, it didn't really love coming into a shaded office. It took about 3 years to die. And then I stole one from my parents' backyard, and that one took about 4 months to die. So now we've got the Carry Pines, which, I don't know, about 4 metres tall. I picked them up from an ex-hire plant place. They're a total bargain at $100. And really happy in here. They've shed most of their old leaves, and all their new beautiful baby blue green leaves are growing really well. They seem very happy.
Not an instant go-to, and I actually copied your idea after I saw what you'd picked up, that I ventured out to the same place in the northeastern sub. I did get the other one. And I have to agree with you. Honestly, David, I think they're an undiscovered gem.
Oh, yeah.
I live in a very dark old villa, as you know, and I had this Carry Pine in a slight sliver of eastern sun in the eastern facing lounge room, and Not thriving, but my gosh, still alive.
hanging in there.
Hanging in there.
I mean, the ones that we both got came out of the government offices up in Mount Lofty somewhere.
Yes, right.
And they were in a central courtyard in a kind of 1970s office that had a bit of an atrium thing going on. And they were there for, 8 or 10 years and survived fine. So I figured they'd do well here. I've since gone and found some more online and bought some little baby ones to grow them up.
Yes, I'm going to do the same. I'm thinking about adding them to the website because I am blown away.
Yeah,
Absolutely blown away. And they actually fit in exceptionally well. They don't stand out like a sore thumb, or each doesn't. I think you've got 3 in the pot.
Yeah, 3 trunks in the pot. That's just how it came multi-planted.
It's spectacular. But David, you're a mixture. You are a person that collects palms first and foremost.
That was my first love, back from when I was 19. I helped a couple of other guys start up the Palm and Cycad Society of South Australia. Many years ago. Yeah, I'm still a member, but I don't have time to be involved much anymore. So palm trees from a very young age. I was a member of the International Palm Society, which is how we all found each other. And then that's kind of branched out. There was always a few aroids and ferns playing around because just palms, while it's a lovely thing, it doesn't necessarily fill out the space particularly well because they are quite bare at the bottom by the time most of them grow. And you also can't grow all the varieties of palms inside, and because I live in an apartment, I only have maybe 5 or 6 palms out on the balcony where it's full sun and pretty rough. So inside here are all the understory palms that I can collect and grow, and I buy a lot of them from seed. So there's a mob called Rare Palm Seeds on the internet who have an amazing service where I can buy crazy things online all the time. And so typically every month I'm getting another packet of seeds and growing lots of babies.
Where do you propagate them? On the balcony at home? Or here
in the
studio?
They start off in here on top of the hot water service under the sink. So they're in fast food containers with a little bit of soil mix. And then when they germinate, they go home to sort of harden up in the apartment at home because it's fairly controlled as well. And then when they get big enough, they come back in here.
Given the volume of plants that you have, and it's I can see rabbit's hair ferns, the kauri pine, the ZZ plant. I can see aroids of all description.
Yeah.
Watering is once a week.
Well, almost everything is in self-watering pots, which is in itself an expensive thing to do, but because they're all on display, the pots are on display too, and it's an architectural office, so every pot is either black, white or grey. Because you've got to have these things under control. I'm moving more to pure white pots, but that takes a long time to do the changeover. So in summer, it's usually every 2 weeks to water. We're pushing it out to 3 weeks at the moment. Some plants don't need it much more than once every 2 months because they don't use much water, but others need it weekly. It's particularly the higher stuff, the stuff that is above the 3 metre line. It gets to 30, 40, 50 degrees up there on hot, sunny days.
Of course.
So we have a misting system above the green wall, which I guess is something else we should talk about. There is a green wall there.
I have spotted it, and you have told me about it before. It's potted out from the angle that I'm sitting at. I can see syngoniums.
It's in its second generation. So we moved in here almost 6 years ago now. And when we moved in, we set up the green wall day one and experimented with lots of things. And some stuff did really well, some stuff did terribly. So it's an expensive kind of occupation playing with green wall till you get the plants right. So this time I just went to Plants in a Box online and bought myself a whole heap of boxes. So some aglaonomias, differentbachias, lots of different syngoniums. There's quite a few philodendrons up there, so quite a few xanadus because they're quite cute when they're small. Yes. They grow really well up there, and a whole lot of spathiphyllums. And then along the top, couple of quirky things I tried, like some what was Philodendron goldii, which is now Thermatophyllum sprucianum. They had them at Plants in a Box at like $9 each.
A cysis as well. I can see a cysis from here. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. There is one of them that grows up and across the ceiling, and because the green wall is hung from the ceiling by some quite industrial chains. There are 3 chains, and I'm trying to grow 3 plants up each chain. So there is that Eileen Danica, I think it's called.
Yes.
So
Ellen Danica?
Ellen Danica, sorry. Yes, very good. My namings are not perfect at times. I care about plants, not names.
Absolutely.
So that one grows up and is growing across the ceiling. So there's another cissus in there as well, which hasn't actually done very well. But then on this end, I thought I'd try something different and have planted a standard jasmine, just a normal outdoor jasmine. And after about 6 weeks, it's hit the ceiling. So it's climbed 3 metres in 6 weeks inside.
Wow, so obviously no blooms as yet. Do you think you'll flower?
I don't really care about flowers.
No. Here.
There's a few things that have flowered in here, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do with that?
What
It's
is
like,
that?
it's a thing and it's in the way.
I can see different varieties of rubber plants.
Yeah, going through a ficus phase too at the moment.
Yes, okay.
When you helped with that, with the
Yes.
little rock fig, thank you.
They're fabulous ones. But,
Yeah.
it's a real eclectic mix, particularly the drapey. Is that a Snow Queen pothos that's trailing down?
Yeah,
its
that's
pot?
about 3 metres long, yes. And next to it is a siltpecana, which has tendrils up to 7 or 8 metres now.
Fishbone cactus, a couple of Hoyas, I think, as Stromys. I could be mistaken.
There are
some
quite a
Hoyas.
few Hoyas. We're up to about 15 or 20 Hoyas. And the Ripsalis are kind of taken over in there as well.
Yes, and a few peperomias scattered around.
I have these, I try lots of things because the lighting and the temperature are really quite particular in the office and I can't do much about them. They are what they are. Okay. So some things do really well and some things don't. And we had some major attacks of spider mite and thanks to a plant from IKEA, an attack of mealybug. So I did the bugs for bugs thing and that knocked a lot of it on the head, but I'm still battling the mealybugs. So there are things like peperonias that I seem to make rot. So I am no longer buying any peperonias.
They're on the ban list. Can I hold you wind up a bit there? You mentioned bugs for bugs.
Yes.
They are on my hit list of people to interview.
You should.
Or
yeah.
people who are connected in that industry. Share with everyone what that are, because you introduced me to
Did
them.
I
I will be placing an order. I haven't yet on the list of things to do, but share with us what it is and what turned up at your studio.
There's a little bit of coverage on my Instagram account if you go back a few months, but I have a friend who's a plant scientist. Well, I have several plant scientist friends, and I mentioned that I was struggling with mealybugs, and he goes, "Oh, bugs for bugs." So I sat on my phone and while at dinner with these people, managed to place an order for some predatory mites that kill spider mites. So it kills the eggs. Some more predatory mites that would kill the thrips. Excuse me. And then some lacewing bugs that would eat the larvae of the mealybugs. So what arrived in 3 separate packages were these essentially bits of sawdust in plastic tube with some mite larvae that you shake into pots. And, here we are sitting in an office with, 500 plus plants and there is not a thrip to be seen anywhere.
I was about to ask you that. How do you go about distributing them? Or is it just one pot that takes the load and they distribute themselves?
I just sprinkled a little bit. I mean, we've been on the thrips thing since we started, because when we first moved in, there was a couple of hundred plants, only a couple of hundred plants, and the thrips were out of control. Like, they would land on the side of your eyes and on your lips, and, you'd sit at your desk and you'd be swarmed by them. So we did bug bombs, we did all sorts of sprays. We're finally on top of it so that they're just not a problem anymore, which is really nice. So the predatory bugs must still be doing their thing.
How long did it take for you to notice the results of sort of when you've distributed the package from Bugs for Bugs?
Certainly the mealybugs are a continuing problem, but the spider mite and the thrips were probably gone completely within weeks. Yeah, I know. It was like magic. I think I need to buy more lacewings for the dealing with the mealybugs, because there are a couple of plants that are kind of out of reach and a little bit infested, and I'm struggling to fight them off. So I'm going to throw the plant away. Easter is my rebuilding certain areas little time off, and a couple of those plants are just going to get turfed and replaced with better things for their spots.
So that's is that the predominant way that you treat a bug infestation? Will you ever resort to sprays?
No, I do. I spray.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, Bunnings sell a lovely thing called scale spray or something.
Right, just in a squirter bottle that you
a little yellow
pump.
$10 squirter bottle, and it kills mealybugs in the first application, and they don't come back. I've only just recently discovered it. It's got a whole lot of petrol in it, which I think is what does the work. Doesn't hurt the plants. It's probably really evil, but when you've got 500 plus plants and mealybugs crawling, I can't afford to let them take over, because I have lost a few quite significant plants due to mealybug infestation.
My goodness. And the way you access those plants, particularly the ones that are overhanging, are through that giant ladder that you've invested
That's
in
correct,
at
yes.
the back.
We have 3 ladders. We have a 6-metre ladder to get all the way up to the ceiling. We have a standard folding ladder and then a platform ladder on wheels, which is the watering ladder.
So it's sort of, your hobby obviously takes you into different areas. So you didn't think you'd be a collector of ladders. You are.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Well, because one ladder is never enough.
One ladder is never enough. But, you're investing in bugs to eat the other bugs.
And a ridiculous collection of plastic self-watering pots.
Yes.
And, the world does not have enough good plastic self-watering pots around.
No, there is
No,
a
it's a
niche that
struggle.
needs to be, an itch that needs to be scratched there. Any industrial designers out there,
I
take
know.
note. It is very frustrating. Is there what would be your wish list for a better self-watering pot?
I mean, look, Bunnings have some okay ones, and they're the ones I end up buying all the time.
Yeah.
I think they're Eden or something.
Right.
I've tried everything I can on eBay, and I normally get 3 or 4 and then give them a whirl. But honestly, you need one with a big enough reservoir so it doesn't spew water everywhere. So
Yes.
a couple of my staff, after I've watered the next day, they'll come in and say, so it was watering night last night, was it? Can you tell? And they're like, yeah, my desk is wet. So I sometimes overwater, and
Yes.
then it dribbles out the side and dribbles down the catalogue shelves and over my staff's desk and keyboard. And
It's
that's right.
Well, that's
It's a
requirement.
sacrifice.
It's a
Yeah.
requirement to work here, I guess.
Yeah, look, they get free plants. They do very well out of me.
You have people you mentioned before who walk past your studio, who stop and stare, who press, as you said, their noses up against the glass. Some will come in.
Yes.
You don't see something like this. You might see a token effort in a renovated pub or restaurant with a vertical garden, but this is something else.
Yeah, so we're right next to a coffee shop on one side and a pub is two doors down on the other side, both of which are relatively busy and quite sociable places. So there's a lot of people who walk past and just stop. And I swear they don't think we can hear them, because they'll just go, oh my gosh, can you have a look at that? Oh, look what's in there. And they'll stand by the open door having a conversation about our office while we're all sitting in here working. None of us turn around and look anymore. We just kind of pretend they're not there, they'll go away.
But you can understand why.
I can understand.
Breathtaking.
I would. If this
you
wasn't
saw.
mine, I would stand there with my nose against the glass and put my phone against the glass and take lots of photos. And if there was someone in there, I would wander in and say, "Wow," because you think, "Wow, hasn't anybody ever walked in and said wow before?" Yeah.
Point taken. Fertilising. How do you do it?
Oh, slack.
What do you do? Is it in stages? Is it
Yeah.
sections?
So typically I do a spring fertiliser with Sea Sol and Thrive, which basically means having a bucket in the sink. While that fills, I use the watering can to water. Then I go back and use the bucket to fill the watering can and then refill the bucket. So there's this constant supply of stuff. So watering with a hose takes me probably around 3 hours now. So watering with fertiliser is a 5-6 hour thing. So I break it down. But typically I get lazy and get slow release. So beginning of spring, every pot gets a little sprinkle and then it gets watered in. And unfortunately that's probably got to be enough, because I just can't keep the Thrive up. No. Little special plants get special attention.
Sure.
The variegated variegated monsteras, sorry.
Yes.
And, all those lovely philodendrons that Neil has been handing my way, or Instagram has been teasing me with, and eBay has been supplying me.
And Neil being Neil Crafter, the person who was the inaugural guest.
Yes.
We're very fortunate.
We are
living
very
in our
fortunate that it's just 20 or 35 minutes drive from here, actually. door to door.
I think last time I met with you, David, I think it was the Arrowed Association Christmas lunch. I think we discussed
when you won the variegated monster.
I did win the yellow variegated monster. I picked
we-
it up recently.
Oh, did you?
actually.
Very good. And we all got cuttings off of Neil.
We did get cuttings off of Neil. So if anyone's listening, well worth joining your Arrowed
Oh, yes.
Association. when you
Because
stay.
knowing Neil is a handy thing. Although he knows nothing about anthuriums or monsteras.
No, he is a genus snob. He's a freely
An elitist.
an
yeah.
elitist to the philodendron
But in a
genus.
lovely way, just like some of my palm friends are total palm snobs.
You have reached. You were saying you are slowing down on the purchasing.
Well, I'm running out of things to
Yeah,
buy that
you
I
are.
either will survive or... So I'm now down to a few anthuriums, monsteras that are on the hit list. Of course, there's always some more variegated, crazy philodendrons, but I struggle paying much more than $300 or $400 for a plant. I think, if I can pick up stuff for $100, $150, I don't think about it much beyond that. I start to question my sanity and think, all right, do I really need this?
Because there was a recent sale in the last few days.
I saw that one. Was that 5,200?
The variegated Adansonii,
Yes.
which some people refer to as the archipelago plant, but it's a stunner.
It is pretty.
But
That one leaf with roots, or one leaf, 2 nodes with roots for $5,000.
Yeah, that's
It would be a license to print money if you could make it grow fast.
absolutely, my goodness. It's wow. That's the variegation trend continues, but that's next level. I don't know. I think I'd be terrified to ship, receive, pot.
Yeah.
You could try and buy something like that in partnership, but I wouldn't want the responsibility of growing it, David.
No. Well, I've killed variegated monsteras. I've killed quite rare palms. I'm currently fighting with my philodendrus at Mamii. Yeah. Little beastie is trying to rot on me. So, you buy all these lovely plants off people and bring them back here, and they just look at me and go,
Screw you.
yeah, pretty much. So some of them need a little bit of TLC to keep going. So like my variegated monstera, my first one, I bought the white one. I've had for, 3 or 4 years now, paid 300 and something bucks for it.
Back in the good times,
Back
when that was considered pricey.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And, it's basically started turning plain green, so I got vicious and hacked it right back to the leaves of where I bought it, and it has just thrown out a 3/4 white leaf, which is pretty, but of course that's going to go brown soon.
That's a good point, So you find that that was successful for you. So if you have a variegated plant that is throwing out too much green, try that, but maybe have a stiff drink before you do so.
Oh yeah, but it's not going to die.
No.
And I got four new cuttings off of it.
Fabulous.
Which basically just went back in the same pot. Well, I gave one to one of my staff because he was kind of eyeing it off.
Lusting after
Well, they've
it.
all been lusting after it, but
Clearly green is the colour of preference in this studio.
Yeah, there's not a lot. I mean, there's a minor variegation. There's a couple of red-leafed things, but you've got to hunt for them. I mean, the thing with palm trees is that they are all green.
Yes.
And so I'm quite happy with green, no flowers. There's some variegated Sansevieras out the front. The Sansevieria kind of window is up for the Easter rebuild as well. There are, 30 different varieties of Sansevieria across the front window of the office.
Yes.
Some of my favourite ones are ones right by the door that are sort of as thick as your finger but 1.5 metres tall, and just beautiful little skinny round versions of the cylindrica.
It is cylindrica?
No, the fat one is cylindrica. The other ones have got some crazy names that I would have to look up. They are also on my Instagram feed from probably a year ago now. I picked them up online from a dedicated Sansevieria nursery up in Queensland.
Yes, where all the treasures come from.
Yeah, Queensland. God.
What do your clients, your architectural clients, because this is primarily an architectural studio.
It's an office. People work here, and we have clients come and visit often. The first time they normally just stand in there and stare and just kind of go, wow, lots of plants. And the ones who are into plants will have a wander.
And be overwhelmed generally.
Yeah.
Others
just kind of go, oh, that's a lot of work. And then sit down and we have our meeting.
Yeah.
My current theory, like when we used to finish architectural projects, particularly residential, we would normally buy a bottle of champagne and crack it with the clients and, celebrate. Whereas now I've kind of switched that over to buying them a little collection of houseplants.
Fabulous.
To buy them some nice pots that coordinate with their house, and then give them instructions on how not to kill them and get them going. And it's funny, I delivered some to a house down at Aldinga. We just finished, big holiday house down there. And they weren't home when I got there, even though we'd organised to meet. But anyway, so I left them by the front door, and they just dragged them inside and lined them up against a wall and took a photo and said, "Is this where you thought?" So I had to do a drawing of where the plants would go, in what order, and emailed that through, and they positioned them and took a photo and said, "Oh my God, it just makes the place feel so much more homey." And I'm like, that's why we do this.
And you would have had an absolute intimate knowledge of the house because you designed it.
Oh, yes, because I designed it. And most of the houses we design are ridiculously bright, so that they all handle houseplants really, really well.
That's what I was going to ask you. Just generally speaking, from an architect's perspective and probably subscribing to certain professional journals and being in the industry, are you noticing, whether it be commercial jobs or even residential, is there a little bit more of a trend towards light and bright?
Well, residential, yes, because I think some of us have the seasonal adjustment issues to deal with. So for me, sunshine is kind of what makes me happy. So plants are good for that because they help keep me on the balanced kind of mental health spectrum.
Yeah.
So most of the houses we do overly bright, and if you need to tone it down, well, you have blinds or curtains to do that. But middle of winter, Adelaide, when the sun's shining, it is just gorgeous when the sun floods right in. And in summer, sure, you batten down the hatches, but you can design buildings, we're not going to get into a design post, but you can design buildings in Adelaide to exclude the sun in summer and let it in winter and get that kind of perfect balance. So we do a fair bit of that. And from a commercial side of things, I mean, plants have always been in big commercial fit outs, but they're getting more and more intense because, you know, people talk about the air cleaning qualities and how good for your well-being it is to have plants in the office. Everyone says that in here. They go, wow, the oxygen in here must be so good and everyone must just love working here. I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it's you know, the evidence is still sort of under review. I know a lot of people do swear by the plant cleaning qualities or plant air cleaning, if I can speak properly, air cleaning properties. But
I think that was designed for space stations by NASA. You know, if you can look at that study, this is where I like watching sci-fi on movies and stuff, and you see their space stations with lots of plants, and you think, that's a good thing to have on a space station.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, no heating or cooling in here? Is there heating? Okay. Air conditioned, of course. Okay.
Yeah,
air conditioned.
reverse cycle.
But because the ceiling at its tallest is 6 metres.
It gets hot up there.
It's hot. Heat rises. Here's a science lesson for everybody. So heat rises. It does get hot up there.
Oh, yeah. The poor sister that's trying to climb across the ceiling gets burnt every now and again on hot days.
Right.
So when we turn the aircon on, it's cool from 3 metres down.
Okay.
And everything above that just gets hotter and hotter and hotter. If you stand at the top of the ladder on a hot day, I drip with sweat. It's like 45, 50 up there. Okay.
What happens at night time? I'm thinking Adelaide winters are cold.
Yep.
You're not here running the heating.
No, but the office, it would never drop below probably 15 or 16.
Okay. All right.
So I don't get any frosts inside, obviously.
Okay.
And we have heat on during the day. The super sensitive couple of plants, like the coconut palm that, you know, I just want a coconut, and so it has a heat mat, and it shares its heat mat with a few other sensitive things, typically the cuttings or newbies that just need a little bit of warmth to get them going. So there's a couple of heat mats hiding around the office.
Right, so that's how you sort of carry them through, because I did wonder, I know that's a magic number, particularly for Neil Crafter. He runs his glass house at a minimum of 14 degrees.
Yeah, because things will just rot.
Absolutely. So, but that's how you, right, that's the secret there. So,
yeah, and we don't leave heating, well, we don't intentionally leave any heating on overnight. We all have radiant heaters under our desks because the ceiling is so high and the heat disappears. But then we also have a big ass fan, which is a brand name, by the way. That's not me being
rude.
Rude, yes. So it's a 4 metre diameter slow speed fan that pushes all the warm air down in winter. So that runs pretty much all winter. And we have these under desk radiant heaters on, which regularly get left on by staff. So you'll come in the morning and you think, oh, it's nice and toasty in here. Who left their heater on? Burning my electricity bill. We recently put solar panels on the roof, so...
Oh, you did do that. Yep. And I think once you told me a skylight's on the agenda, perhaps?
Yeah, I just need to build up some more cash and then a skylight in the lower portion of the office at the front, because if we're currently sitting in what I call the death zone. Nothing grows right here where we're sitting because we're in the middle of the dark spot that's kind of equidistant from the front window to the high-level windows. And
so you've sort of populated this space on one wall with a beautiful collection of architectural and travel books?
Yeah, mostly architectural books. The travel books are really at home, but it's architectural travel, so architourism. So books from my travels, architecture books on each of the cities I visit and the kind of stuff. And then, of course, there's the Lego architecture models, which is another obsession.
Is that right? With Statue of Liberty,
Eiffel
Tower. I've just also spotted for the first time Marimo balls?
Yeah, Marimo balls.
Marimo moss balls.
Yes.
How? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so a client of mine had them. He's a PhD in bioinformatics, so plant biologist nerd, and they had some, and I'm like, oh, they're pretty. So jumped online and found some in Sydney and had them sent over.
How did they arrive? Are they in some kind of...
Ziploc bags.
Okay, and with perhaps a little bit of moisture rolling around in there? Or?
Yeah, they essentially squeeze them out a bit and just send them over in Ziploc bags. A couple of days, you throw them in and they just sit there.
Expand, do you have to...
I clean the water out once every...
Does it get mold?
When I remember.
Is it
goes a little bit green. If the light's too bright, the whole thing greens up and they don't do very well. And if it's too dark, they go the other way and don't do too well. So that kind of in the death zone is the best spot for them. They've been there for about 3 or 4 years now.
Do they grow in size?
Oh, supposedly on a big one, 5 millimetres a year in diameter. Yeah, it's not great.
They are a little bit of a... Well, I'm not going to call it a trend, but they have been popping up here and there on Instagram feeds and perhaps new green life stores that pop up around, in the eastern seaboard.
They're supposed to be a banned, noxious, weedy kind of thing we shouldn't let into our waterways.
No, okay. Well,
they're pretty safe on my bookshelf.
You are also, if you follow David on Instagram, you'll note that when you travel for work, whether it be interstate or overseas, you're a big fan of going to Botanic Gardens.
I am indeed. So
first stop on most trips, I think.
Pretty much. Yep. And if I'm overseas, then it's always visit the glasshouses because I have a bit of an obsession with tropical plants and palms. So, recently been to Hong Kong and China, off to Cairns in a couple of weeks. Not that I need to visit a greenhouse in Cairns. Cairns is the greenhouse. And then London, Berlin, Munich, Vienna a bit later in the year, and then KL and Singapore again. So,
did you have in all of your travels, and you're probably the most widely travelled glasshouse visitor I know.
There are people I follow on Instagram who do more than me.
I'm sure they are.
They're in Europe.
But
that's not fair.
It's you and I now, so you are the most well travelled. I know. What would be your favourite, if anyone was to go anywhere?
Schönbrunn in Vienna.
Okay.
It's the biggest classical glasshouse in the world, and it's one of these beautiful ones built in the 1700s and in Schönbrunn Palace Gardens. So you can go to it without going to the palace, but it is just magical. So it's got an arid bit, a middle bit that's not too wet, and then a bit where you walk through the door and you're just dripping in sweat. And it's quite heavenly.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I must say, though, that in the Shibuya Botanic Gardens in Tokyo last year, they've got a fairly new glasshouse, and it's really quite a lovely building. It's not got the best collection in it, because I went to a couple in Tokyo. Well, there are only 2 in Tokyo, and I went to both of them.
Yes.
They have fairly average collections of plants. They're nice plants, but I've actually got a more diverse collection in my office than they have in their greenhouse.
Okay.
So I think it's, for them, not necessarily about rare plants, it's just about growing stuff.
But Vienna's the one.
Vienna is the winner, yes.
In terms of the plants that we both collect and love, any standouts from memory in terms of the plants that you saw?
There is a ficus there that's a variegated ficus. It has a funny name that I can never remember, but it's got like a Aglaonomia pictum tricolour kind of leaf on a ficus, and it is just heavenly. So I've written that down, but of course you can't buy it anywhere. Nobody sells it.
Collected, no doubt.
From some random rainforesty thing. I long for the good old days where you used to be able to go to Botanic Gardens and swap and do cuttings and fly them back in your luggage. Because you talk to people like Neil, who says, oh, yeah, well, I've got this one off of somebody in the States and brought that back years ago. And I'm like, can't do that anymore.
In the 70s.
Yes. In the free and easy days of plant swapping.
Yes, but for a good reason now. The laws are, strict and
that is correct. Yes, we don't want rampant weeds and the bugs that they bring in. And I buy a lot of seeds from overseas.
Yes,
it's hard work to do the plants. Although we are talking about that with Neil, whether we all get together and
pool our resources.
Yeah, mainly just deal with those massive costs and find some way of getting them looked after while they let you have them.
Yes, for 3 months minimum.
Yeah, that you pay per week.
And the chemical that's sprayed on them that kills most of them. What was that? That was a toxic chemical that pretty much has a guaranteed death rate of 100%.
Yes, it kills all leafy green matter. So we're thinking stem cuttings is the way to go.
That's right. And that was something that we'll explore, and we'll keep you guys updated. David, look, out of your collection right here, right now, if you had to choose a standout.
It's always hard when people ask me that.
It is, isn't it? Yes.
It's such a rotating thing, my favourites. I mentioned the really skinny Sansevieras they're kind of cute, but they're not lovely and cuddly.
No.
I've just got myself a black ZZ.
You did.
I did.
Yes, I know you did. You had your heart on one about 18 months ago.
Yeah, I know. When I was in Europe when they released them there, and I'm like,
Are you happy with it? I was slightly disappointed when I saw one.
they're quite small.
Well, size, but a little bit translucent and not as black as I would have preferred.
Well, I think they just blacken up with
Do
age.
they? Well, I hope so. They're a little bit black veiny with green
Oh,
background.
no, mine has got some quite seriously deep bottle greeny black kind of leaves. But then the new leaves come out this really quite bright green, like brighter than the normal ZZs, and then blacken off from the edges in by the looks of it.
Okay.
What other stuff? I've just got a couple of crazy ones online. I'm trying to stop buying online, but, occasionally there are people up in Queensland who sell things. I mean, the Variegated Monstera throwing out a white leaf is lovely.
Exciting.
Yeah. I do love my Philodendron Brazil because they've really just hit Australia in a big way. I did make quite a bit of money off my Philodendron Brazils back in the early days.
Very happy, isn't it? I know I was the benefactor of a kind cutting that you gifted me.
Did that survive?
Yes, it has.
Very good.
Yes, I'm really pleased with
Well
that.
done, you.
But yours is going gangbusters.
Well, I've got 3 now.
Show off.
And Cutting's trying to make a 4th. So one at home, one hanging, one up. There's a couple of sweet spots in the office where if I want something to grow, that's where I hang it. And things just go crazy in those spots. So that's where the Brazil is, trying to get some growth on so I can get some more cuttings.
I could be mistaken. I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing a pink princess.
Nope. It's pink. Oh, look. I have actually bought some pink princess.
Have you?
But then they refunded me the money and said, actually, no, they were the green variety, not the pink variety.
Yes, I remember that scandal.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the grower in that case.
Oh,
Wrong
yeah.
plugs were sent out.
Yes.
The non-pink princess.
Yeah, I know. How do you do that? The green form of a pink princess.
Oh, it
Surely
happens.
it's just a green princess.
Believe you me, I ordered some. I ordered some black velvet Alocasia reginala from a plug supplier, just to put my toe in the water, David, just to give it a go, to see what it would be like to order a tray of plugs and see if I could grow them up. Black passion fruit arrived. Ned Kelly. Someone out there in Australia has got my order and didn't own up to it. So my 72 black Ned Kelly passion fruits were subsequently collected from the plug supplier, and they never found the black Alocasia.
And they didn't have another tray.
No, because you have to contract order it and wait 18 months for it to be delivered.
God.
So, someone's not sleeping well at night, because we'll never find out where
Well,
they
they've
went.
killed them all already.
Yeah.
I have a no allocation policy now.
Do you? Yeah.
I have a stingray that's doing beautifully, but only because I got the bugs for bugs onto the mites because it was mite infested.
Riddled with red mite? Spider mites? That's my
Constantly,
problem. Right.
yeah.
I've just invested in a backpack sprayer out for home.
Yep.
Where you sort of wear the
pump it up
16-litre backpack and spray. But they're insidious. I'm going to invest in the bugs for bugs. That's a great tip and a
So
reminder.
the other tip I got was to keep the humidity up. So we have a couple of humidifiers and a mister system, and I have pebble trays right next to the little Zebrina jobby.
So not a cheap hobby.
I have a spreadsheet on my computer that lists all the plants I've bought since we've moved in here, and I've been collecting since I was 16,
Okay.
15. I've still got a couple of plants from that era, although I did just lose my mature Chamudora metallica, however you want to say that, metallica palm. It was 30 years old, and it succumbed to mealybug. It just got...
Oh, I'm sorry. That's pretty
It was
heartbreaking.
very sad.
Yeah, I can
It was
imagine.
very sad. And my Ernestii Augusti, which is another Chamudora palm, whole leaf thing again, which was a bit of a fascination for a while. That was the same age, grew that from seed back when I was like 17. And it also succumbed. They were both next to each other, the palms. And the nasty IKEA thing that I bought transferred the mealybug on there, and I didn't notice it because you kind of...
Well, you're busy working.
busy working and looking after 498 other plants. So yeah, they basically just did not cope with all the sap getting sucked out of them. And the problem with palms is there's a single growth point. Once that's dead, it's gone. Whereas at least with an arrowhead, if you get real disease, you just hack it back and it'll grow again from the roots. But not so with palms.
Well, there you go. I'm not...
Yeah, very sad.
Right, I didn't know that. There you go. Wow, that's... So you really have to, have nerves of steel if you do...
Yeah, if you're spending money on rare palms, yes. I mean, there are some that clump. So your good old Rafer's palm, you can hack back and it'll just put up babies out the bottom. But and some of the Chamudoras do as well. I've got, this one here, the microsparix, which is an easy peasy one that it grows everywhere. And that one, if you hack it off, it'll grow babies out of it. But the kind of good looking rare ones, all single trunk species.
Yeah, right. Okay. It is an absolute credit to you, this collection. So correct me if I'm wrong, a 30-year collection, or a collection that's taken 30 years to get to this point?
Yeah. I mean, since this office we've been here from 2013, we moved in, the collection's gone outrageous towards the indoor plant and aroid sort of thing, but I brought in probably 50 or 60 plants with me when we moved in, and they've just gone crazy and multiplied. So, go to things like the Fern Society sales and buy myself 20 ferns and lose 15 of them, and, you know how it is.
That's a very good point. I touched on this briefly in a different podcast, but I know there's big event type sales that are come and go to various cities, and there can be there for a weekend once a year, but it's a very good tip. Keep your eyes peeled for the local plant societies, whether it be begonia, bromeliad, orchid.
The Fern Society one, you've got to get there early and line up.
Do you?
Yeah, but 5 years ago when I first went, I got some, variegated Boston ferns and some amazing other nephrolepis, just some beautiful, beautiful ferns, of which they're still surviving, and I've propagated and given lots of bits to people. And will probably continue to do so, but they're a handful that are surviving, because I'm not sure what the issue is with ferns, but some of them just don't love it here.
Okay.
I've tried several ferns many times, and I just don't learn my lesson.
So, David, what you're saying is 5 years ago, you didn't have to queue up. You could walk in confidently and secure yourself a great find. Now?
Yes, now you've got to get there and wait an hour before they open the doors.
Well, that's great for those societies to have that support.
Yeah.
But, they can be overlooked when people get caught up on the big events that are heavily promoted. Don't forget your local clubs, because there's some gems hiding in backyards.
Incredible plants. Even when I get there at midday, so 2 hours after opening, there are still half a dozen things that I've never seen or heard of before. So I'll still pick them up. I just don't get the crazy things. But then the crazy things, I just have to buy online.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Have you ever had an amazing story where you've walked into someone's house and there in the corner is a spectacular plant growing? Have you anything like that?
That's my house.
You're that person.
Well, no, apart from Neil's down south. Oh, no, I did walk into... There's another guy who I bought a plant off of locally. I mean, the thing is that I'm now at the point that I have most of what I want.
Yeah.
So
to impress you, it's quite hard to do.
Not that I'm a snob, it's just that I look at it and I go, oh, that's cool. Yours is growing better than mine, or mine's growing better than yours. That's pretty much the judgment call now. Yeah. But it's really now I look online at other people's Instagram and just get jealous at the craziness they grow. But they live in Florida, so... Oh,
I know. Yeah. I have heard of one story of someone in Adelaide who is quite well known, but just went to a garage sale and walked in the backyard, and their partner noticed a super rare philodendron. Got it cutting. That's the stuff of legends. I love stories like that. So I do like to ask guests if they've had any finds like that. I'm waiting for that special day.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'll do that in Cairns, maybe.
Yeah, just take...
Well, actually, last time I was up in Cairns, I might have wandered into the jungle and got myself a couple of aroids.
Just Rhaphidophora cursiva dripping off all the trees.
Well, this was the Rhaphidophora australis. I can't remember. It's a native one.
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
Strappy leaf thing. It's quite lovely. So that's finally doing well after 2 years of mollycoddling. Yeah. Whereas the epipremnum that was just growing randomly up the forest trees is doing extraordinarily well.
Yes. Well, when I went up there in January, there was a creek bed running through the property where Gloriosum was going wild. Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
That's Queensland for you, particularly far north Queensland. And you'll be visiting Bill?
I will be doing, yes, going to go see Jules.
Go and see Jules.
I'm sure there'll be photos on my Instagram feed.
The Plant Factor. So you're going to go and explore there, and there's some fabulous palms up there that you'll love to see.
Yes.
Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me this evening.
That's right.
Painting a lovely word picture of this paradise that you work in. And it is an absolute credit to you, David.
Thank you.
And the passion is evident in terms of the care you take with your plants and how they're presented, and the stunning work environment you provide for your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you again, David. See you later.